Hello there.
You've seen the specs, you've compared the prices, you know that VRAM capacity matters. Everyone tells you to get 12 or 16 gigabytes in 2026, but there is one number on that spec sheet that most gamers ignore, until their frame times spike and their textures start popping in. That number is the memory bus. Is a 128-bit bus a death sentence for performance? Can a narrow bus actually beat a wide one? And why does AMD's RX 7900 GRE still crush newer cards in raw bandwidth? Today we're diving deep into the invisible highway of your graphics card. We're breaking down the math, the architecture, and the real-world impact of memory bandwidth on the best GPUs under $300 in April 2026. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which card gives you the most future-proof performance, and which ones are hiding a bottleneck. Let's get into it. First, let's simplify the tech. Think of your GPU, VRAM as a massive warehouse full of game assets, textures, models, lighting, data. The memory bus is the highway connecting that warehouse to the GPU's processing cores. Two things define this highway. Number one, width. How many lanes does it have? This is measured in bits. 128-bit, 256-bit. Number two, speed. How fast are the cars driving? This is the memory clock speed, measured in gigabits per second. Multiply the width by the speed and you get bandwidth, measured in gigabytes per second, or GBS. This is the maximum amount of data your GPU can fetch every single second. In 2026, games are heavier than ever. 4K textures, complex ray tracing structures, huge open worlds. Your GPU is constantly screaming for data. If the highway is too narrow, traffic jams happen. The GPU cores sit idle waiting for data. That's when you get stuttering. That's when your 1% lows drop. That's when your smooth experience turns into a slideshow. But here's the twist. In recent years, manufacturers like NVIDIA and AMD have started narrowing the highway. Why would they do that? If you look at the RTX 40 series or the new RTX 50 series, you'll see something shocking. 128-bit buses. Even some mid-range AMD cards are dropping to 128-bit. On paper, this looks like a downgrade, but it's not. It's a strategy called cache efficiency. Modern GPUs now pack massive amounts of ultra-fast memory directly onto the chip itself. This is the L2 cache, or in AMD's case, Infinity Cache. Think of this as a small storage closet right next to the worker's desk. When the GPU needs data, it checks the closet first. If the data is there, a cache hit, it doesn't need to drive all the way out to the VRAM warehouse. Because modern architectures are incredibly good at predicting what data you need next, they hit the cache 90% of the time. This means the actual demand on the memory bus drops significantly. So NVIDIA can use a cheaper, narrower 128-bit bus. They save money on manufacturing, they lower power consumption, all without losing much performance. However, this strategy has a weakness. It relies on predictable data. If a game accesses memory randomly, or if you're playing at higher resolutions where the cache can't hold everything, the narrow bus becomes a severe bottleneck. And this brings us to the current market battle in April 2026. Let's look at the top contenders under $300 right now. First, the AMD Radeon RX 7900 GRE and RX 7800 XT. These cards are beasts. They both feature a 256-bit memory bus paired with 16 GB of GDDR6. Do the math. 256 bits times roughly 18 to 19 gigabits per second gives you nearly 600 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. Plus, AMD adds Infinity Cache on top. This combination means these cards are rarely starved for data. At 1440p and even 4K, they keep feeding the cores smoothly. This is why the 7900 GRE, despite being last-gen RDNA 3, still outperforms many newer cards in pure rasterization. Now look at the NVIDIA RTX 5060 and RTX 4060. They use a 128-bit bus. Their theoretical bandwidth is around 270 to 300 GBs. That's less than half of the AMD cards. NVIDIA compensates with a huge L2 cache and DLSS 4. For 1080p gaming this works fine, but push to 1440p with high textures and that narrow bus starts to choke. You might see lower frame times and more stuttering in open-world games. Then there's the RX 9060 XT. As part of the new RDNA 4 series, it also uses a 128-bit bus. While it has newer ray tracing cores, its raw bandwidth is similar to the NVIDIA cards. It's efficient, yes, but it lacks the sheer data throughput of the 256-bit AMD predecessors. And finally, the RTX 3060 12GB. It has a 192-bit bus and 360 GBs of bandwidth. It's older, but that wider bus helps it punch above its weight in data-heavy tasks even if the cores are slower. So who wins? It depends on what you do. Here is the critical warning for 2026. Bandwidth means nothing if you run out of space. We mentioned the RTX 5060 and potentially some variants of the RX 9060 come with only 8 GB of VRAM. In April 2026, 8 GB is the absolute floor. Games like Call of Duty, Cyberpunk, and upcoming titles are already recommending 12 GB or 16 GB for ultra settings. If you have a super fast 128-bit bus but only 8 GB of VRAM, you will hit the capacity wall. Once VRAM is full, your system swaps data to your main system RAM. System RAM is much slower than VRAM. This causes massive stutters. No amount of bandwidth can fix a capacity shortage. This is why the RX 7900 GRE and RX 7800 XD are so compelling. They offer 16 GB of VRAM and a 256-bit bus. They have the space to store the assets and the highway speed to deliver them quickly. For NVIDIA buyers, you must aim for the 12 GB variant of the RTX 5060 if available. The 8 GB model is a risk for longevity. So what's the verdict for the best GPU under $300 in April 2026? If you want raw performance, future-proofing, and the best memory subsystem, the AMD Radeon RX 7900 GRE is the king. Its 256-bit bus and 16 GB VRAM provide a level of bandwidth that ensures smooth gaming at 1440p for years to come. The RX 7800 XD is a very close second if you find it cheaper. If you prioritize features like DLSS 4, ray tracing, and MVNC streaming, the NVIDIA RTX 5060 is a strong choice, but only if you get the 12 GB version. Its narrower bus is mitigated by smart caching, but don't expect it to match AMD's raw throughput at higher resolutions. Avoid the 8 GB cards unless your budget is strictly locked. And remember, don't just look at the bit width, look at the whole picture. Cache, capacity, architecture. Thanks for watching. If this breakdown helped you decide, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into PC hardware. Let me know in the comments, do you think narrow buses are the future or is AMD's wide bus approach better? See you in the next one.